These are the only 4 movements you need to grow bigger quads. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Kyle Radjo. I'm an IFBB Classic Physique Pro and the owner of Ultimate Physique Coach. Now in today's video, I'm taking you guys through my full quad focused leg session to show you the only 4 movements you need to grow your quads. And these are actually the only 4 quad movements I'm using in my current training program. Now in reality, you really only need a handful of movements done really well in order to grow your legs. And unfortunately, most people do the exact opposite. They choose a bunch of different movement patterns done really poorly in an effort to try and grow their quads, but in reality, they don't need to. So I'm gonna break down the only 4 movements you'll ever need and how to do them really well in order to grow your quads. And side note, this is exactly how I program all of my clients' training. So if you wanna find out more about coaching with me, just click the link in the description box below to find out some more details. And without further ado, let's jump into today's session. All right, so just before we jump into the session, I wanted to show you guys this place. We just got to a new gym here in Valencia, and this is like the equivalent of Gold's Gym in Venice Beach. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's literally like a full outdoor gym. There's a full indoor gym just here. And thank God it's not super hot today. It's actually quite a nice day, but it's a little bit mild. So we're hitting legs and it's outside in this outdoor area. So I'm gonna go try and find some equipment because this place is bloody huge, but let's go. All right, so on to exercise 1 of this quad focus session, seated leg extensions. Now, arguably one of the most effective quad builders out there based on some current research, looking at like the leg extension, targeting all areas of the quad, in particular the rec fem, which is generally undertrained with like squat-based patterns where it does kind of go through that lengthening and shortening cycle with no real change in length. So it doesn't actually get any stimulus through the squat-based patterns. Now, one caveat here with the leg extension is it does get quite tricky to load as you get bigger and stronger. So the machine only has a certain amount of plates you can put on. A lot of machines don't actually have the ability to put a gym pin in. For example, this Nautilus machine here has kind of the flick levers, so you can't actually put a gym pin in to kind of add more load. So I think this is the theme that's, I guess, common across all my social media and all the content I put out, with single joint isolation movements being better suited to more moderate to high rep ranges. So typically I'll do this for somewhere in the 10 to 20 rep range where I can get really good stimulus and I don't have to use like crazy heavy loads in order just to achieve the rep range and get close to failure. The other benefit here too is it acts as like a pre-exhaust. So if you are someone that like struggles to kind of feel your quads when you get onto your squat patterns, it's not a bad idea to get on an isolation movement first, really rinse the quads before you move onto your squat patterns. And then once you do get to your squat patterns, you can actually feel your quads and it just becomes a better way to kind of stimulate the muscles that you're trying to train rather than just lifting really heavy. And as a competitive bodybuilder, this is probably one of the most underrated tools you can utilize in order to just minimize risk of injury. So the heavier you lift and the heavier the loads you expose yourself to, the greater the risk of injury, but just also the greater risk of just general wear and tear over time. So if you can use strategies that allow you to kind of limit load exposure and still get the same amount of stimulus, I think it's a pretty smart way to program your training. So 2 sets here in the books. This is kind of a broader rep spread, like 6 to 12. And like I said, with single joint isolation movements being better suited to higher rep ranges, this program I'm actually doing sort of lower rep ranges, more strength focused stuff. I'm pretty much doing the full stack here for 12 reps. So like, it's probably gonna be my top end. I might just add a little bit of load if I can, or just add a couple of reps or even an extra set, to be honest. But this is awesome. If you've never had the ability to use a leg extension that does sort of recline slightly and go all the way in. So this has kind of got like a seat that tilts back and the pad actually has the ability to come all the way in. So there was actually a cool research paper that came out, I think like last year, where they looked at the ability to grow the rec fem specifically and just the overall quads in general by either extending the seat back and stretching at the hip or pushing the knee pad and kind of stretching at the knee further. So if you have the ability to do both, I'd argue you get the most out of a leg extension. So if you do kind of have the ability to maybe just push the seat all the way back or use one of those hustler pads or even just fold a yoga mat just to get more stretch at the knee and also more stretch at the hip. But this is pretty cool, it does both. So last set here. Okay, we're onto a squat pattern. So it's funny, like the last, I guess, few months, gyms have been kind of like few and far between. Not as in like we haven't trained, but like we've been kind of traveling and we'll train at different gyms for a little bit of time and then we'll train in our home gym like we had back in the UK. Not that you need to have a really nice gym to like achieve a result, right? Like I did my pro prep the last 4 or 5 weeks from coming to Australia back to the UK. We trained in my home gym, which is literally like bare bones home gym, and I did my prep there. So like you don't need much to actually get a result. But when you're in a good gym, man, it really makes a difference. More so the environment, but also just the access to equipment, right? Like I actually have not squatted on one of these Cybex tag squats in as long as I can remember, because they don't exist anymore. Like, this thing's probably 20 years old. They don't actually make them anymore. So to be able to use this is fucking awesome. So I'm really gonna push it today. Looking for like 2 sets here, 6 to 10 reps in that sort of 2 RR range. So just feeling it out. It's probably gonna be my last warm-up set. I'll maybe go like 1, 2 reps here just to give it a bit of a nudge, see how it feels, assess the load that I wanna use. And then that'll really determine like, all right, cool, what's my top set or my working set gonna be? We'll get stuck in. All right, so a couple of tips for you guys to get the most out of your hack squats. Number 1, use an appropriate load. You don't need to lift really, really heavy. You just need to lift enough load that has you within a close proximity to failure to your given rep range. So for me, this is like a 6 to 10 sort of rep range. So I'll pick a load that's hard enough for that, but it's not at the expense of my technique. And I think that's the mistake that most people make, is they choose load and they let the load dictate their progression rather than letting their technique dictate progression. So once you standardize your range of motion, you're using a full controlled eccentric, you're pausing at the bottom, you're exploding out of the top. Once you've nailed that, then your progression from there is either just adding load or reps. You shouldn't just be chasing load in order to just make progress. And I guess the second one that I want to bring up is really just prioritizing the muscles you're trying to train. So it is a squat pattern, it's a multi-joint compound movement, it will train lots of muscles, but the intent needs to be there to train the quads. It's not about just lifting as much load as humanly possible, it's about translating as much stimulus to the quads as you possibly can. We're on to the third exercise, and this is like arguably the third, one of 4, of the best quad exercises that you could use and that you really only need. So we've gone through the leg extension, we've gone through the squat pattern, now we're going through the leg press pattern. A couple of tips with this one is just really think about the range of motion. One of the biggest things I see people butchering in most commercial gyms is just like prioritizing load over range of motion. They put tons and tons of load on the leg press, I'm sure you guys have seen it, they load the whole thing up, 500 plates, and they're going down 1/4 of an inch, which in terms of quad development is an absolute waste of time. What we do know about hypertrophy is that full ROM in most scenarios is better. And if you can get a full ROM with a deep stretch under heavy load, that is even better for hypertrophy outcomes. So you are selling yourself short if you are putting heaps of load, cutting your range of motion short, and not getting into that deep stretch. So this will probably be my first working set. I'm gonna feel it out, maybe do a couple of reps here, and then 2 working sets here at about 6 to 12 reps or somewhere there. Exercise number 4 of the only 4 quad exercises you need to get bigger quads. Lunge pattern. So it doesn't really matter what lunge pattern you do. Any lunge pattern is fine. For me today, I've just got 1 set. And these have been dubbed like the Spider-Man lunges, courtesy of Dean McKillop, AKA my coach. He posted these a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about it the other day, and he talked me through it. It's pretty hard to do, but in terms of like the deep knee flexion you get, the minimal recruitment of the glutes and low back and hamstrings and everything, it's just really just a quad dominant squat, or sorry, lunge. But it does also kind of increase mobility as well. So you're doing like 1 leg at a time. So you really open up the hip on the opposing side, which is nice, especially like me, I'm sitting down all day, doing coaching, sitting on my laptop. So opening up my hips is really, really nice and allows me to direct a lot of stimulus to my quads as well. So just 1 set here, 8 to 12 reps either side. So the quad biased Spider-Man lunge is probably one of the best like quad dominant lunge variations you can utilize. A very unique exercise, but when you actually do the movement, it's pretty damn effective and you'll feel it in your quads. So a couple of tips for you guys to get the most out of this one is just really think about the direction of your knee. We really want to think about knee over toe. And when you're standing in that position, you want to almost think about scooping your butt under. So you're not kicking your butt back when you stand up. You're really just thinking about sinking deep, as much knee bend as you can get in that bottom position, and then standing up, contracting the quad at the top of each rep. All right, I apologize for the horrifically overexposed video, but the joys of being in an outdoor gym. Certainly not complaining because this is the palest I've ever been and getting a tan in this session. But quad exercises finished, onto calves, because what leg session would be complete without calves? And I just wanted to show you guys, like, this is what I mentioned about training in some cool gyms with cool equipment. You just get the opportunity to train with stuff that you haven't trained before. I've never actually seen this machine, but I just thought this was like a pin-loaded leg press, which I typically prefer for my calf raises, but it adjusts like a hack squat. So for calf raises, this is almost like a standing calf raise, but because my quads are so fucked and I can't lock my knees out and stand up straight, this is perfect. 2 sets of calf raises here, 6 to 12 reps, and we're gonna rinse these.